Gotta love this song. Today's class, a case study on early rap music. I don't even think you can see it. Early rap music is right up there. Oh, up there. We have covered the subcomponents of the social sciences. And today, just a quick little case study on how we're going to wrap all these subcomponents together. This is the Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang. In fact, we're probably going to have to talk about where Sugar Hill is, right? That'll be part of our geography piece. So, in all seriousness, I mean, that's a pretty serious song, so I guess we're pretty serious right out of the gate anyway. Let me hit the light on this bad boy. That might help. Ooh, do I get a little glow over here now? Woo! All seriousness, what we're going to be doing is taking a look at early rap music as our case study so that you guys can see how really, I mean, social studies is the best subject. Okay, we knew that already. You knew that when you walked in and you had me. Social studies is dynamite. It is the best subject in the whole world. Here's why. Because social studies is the combination of all of these social sciences. Hip guys are every school's party planners. HGAESPP. Hip guys are every school's party planners. That's how we're going to remember it, right? That's the history, the geography, the anthropology, the economics, the sociology, the psychology, and the political science, all wrapped up and tied together into one big, massive, fully understood, right? Or at least a full understanding of any subject matter through the social sciences. And so just as a case study to have some fun, let's take a look at early rap music. And let's start by just thinking about the history of early rap music. A historian studies the who, the what, and the when. And so what we're really talking about here is rap music is the what. Does that blue show up on the screen? It sure looks like it does. So rap music, and we will trace its development, the when, that a historian would be interested in. We're kind of looking at like the late 70s into early 80s, mostly the early 80s. When I say late 70s, that would be like the real advent of rap. And then early rap would last into the early 1980s. And that was the rap music time period. As far as the who, we are the who. We are taking a look at the Sugar Hill Gang. That would be the who. And the song, for those of you that are adding stuff to your Spotify playlist, the song was the Rapper's Delight. That's kind of like, that's the historical piece, right? And a historian's really only going to be interested in that piece. But there's some geography that sort of ties, right? And this is how we start to wrap these social sciences together into more full understanding. If I just said, rap music came about in the early 1980s with groups like the Sugar Hill Gang and their big hit song, The Rapper's Delight, well, great. But that's like not enough. That's not a deep, full understanding of early rap music. We got to go deeper. So let's take a look at the geography. The geography of Sugar Hill, where the Sugar Hill Gang came from, right? That rap group. Sugar Hill is located in the Bronx, New York City. The Bronx being one of the 5 boroughs. Oops, can't spell. And Sugar Hill is actually an area within the Bronx of New York City. For some reason, in some of these inner city neighborhoods, it's always like blank hill, right? Like I grew up in Schenectady, New York. My mom was from Schenectady, New York. She grew up on Goose Hill. My father, he grew up on Hamilton Hill. For some reason, maybe it's because housing develops, people tended to settle up higher on the geographic, the higher elevation settings in these cities. But for whatever reason, a lot of these old school neighborhoods and big cities are always like something hill. Okay, so the geography we're talking about with rap music, Sugar Hill is actually an area. So the Sugar Hill Gang, this rap group, We can see where they got their name from already, right? The geography influenced, right? The physical features of the Bronx influenced the name of that rap group. An anthropologist would be interested in early rap because of the culture. And when we talk culture, we want to think about all those subcomponents that you probably listed in your homework, right? Stuff like food, sports, customs, values, class systems, art. And no doubt, rap music, a huge influence on art, right? The music itself is an art form. And the one thing that I think anthropologists would probably be most interested in is the lyrics of that art, right? The lyrics of this music become super important. I'm not sure why I transitioned to black here. I just did. I reached in the old pocket and look, whoop, pulled out the black, so now I'm on black. And the rap music lyrics are really the anthropologist's dream, right? An anthropologist would be interested in looking at what these rap musicians were singing about. And the lyrics are going to really show the cultural values, especially of the black community, in the early 1980s, right? What did the black community in the Bronx of New York City value back in the early 1980s? And if you pay close attention to the lyrics, I'm not going to go through them and do a lyrical analysis here. It would take too long. But if you're listening to the song and you're listening to the lyrics being sung, you're really getting a feel for the values that were important to that community at that time. An economist. What's an economist going to say about early rap music? If you'll recall, economics is the study of people's decisions, particularly the decisions that we make given very limited resources. Right? We only have X number of resources, but we have all these needs and wants. And what decisions do we make because of that? Well, the economics of rap music is actually kind of interesting. We are looking at an economic impact of rap music. And let's forget about the fact that the rap artists perhaps got rich. Let's talk about just pure economics of the times. Why did rap music blow up in this area? This was appealing. Rap music was appealing to people with limited resources. Very, very limited resources, particularly money. Here's why. And if this was a more refined lesson, like if you guys were in class, I could probably bring up some pictures here. But Sugar Hill in the Bronx, kind of a poor or low socioeconomic neighborhood. These rap artists were able to do stuff that allowed them to create a club atmosphere without a lot of money. So what these rap DJs were doing, were going and buying old crappy records from literally TV shows from the 1960s and 70s. And they would buy these old records that nobody else wanted, like the Incredible Bongo Band. That's a great example of one. Checked out on YouTube sometime if you want to, right? The group was called the Incredible Bongo Band. And they made music for bad, crappy TV shows in the late 60s and 70s. And so these rap artists would go out and buy these really cheap records, and they'd buy the ones and the twos and these really cheap record players. And then they were able to do something out on the street corners in the Bronx, back in the old school, there was lamp posts, like those old school lamp posts that you see. And they could crack the bottom of the lamp post and take the wiring and plug their record players directly and their amplifiers directly into the electricity that was offered by those lamp posts. And they would throw these huge block parties on the street. You didn't need a huge expensive club that people paid a lot of money to get into. You didn't need the really expensive bar for people to buy drinks at, right? People brought their own drinks to the street corner and they would throw these block parties, and you didn't need a lot of money. A little bit of a sociology piece too, right? That's going to tie into that sociological piece. Now you have people interacting at these huge block parties, and it really became like a rebellion against big money disco. All through New York City, there was these huge disco clubs in the late 1970s. You've probably heard of them. Maybe the most famous one was Studio 54, right? And you had these huge disco clubs, and people with a lot of money would go to these disco clubs. They'd stand in line. You had to have nice clothes to get in, or the bouncers kicked you out. They didn't want you in the club, right? And you had a lot of people with a lot of money spending a lot of money to get into the discos, and then they had to like buy the drinks once they were in the disco. And sociologically, it kind of became a big party for fancy rich people, right? Those disco clubs were really like a rich person's party. And for those people that were low socioeconomic type earners, they couldn't get into the disco. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't get in. They didn't have the nice clothes that it took for the bouncer at the club to let you in. They didn't have the money to pay the cover charge. They didn't have the money to even maybe buy drinks once they were in the club. And so rap music became the lower socioeconomic, particularly the black community in the Bronx. So this became their disco. This was their identity. Right? And that kind of ties us into the psychological piece. If you ever take my psychology class, when we get a little bit older in 10th, 11th, 12th grade, we will talk about identity and how the human brain creates identity. And during the time periods that you create identity, teenage, adolescent years is a big time period for identity creation. I'm back to blue again. And what really develops out of this rap music and this rebellion against rich people's disco is you start to see a black culture developing. Right? Rap music gave the sort of poor inner city black community an identity that they could wrap their head around, an identity that they could attach themselves to, and it was a cool identity. It was no longer, oh, you're just like, some poor kid from the ghetto. It really became a strong cultural identity that the black communities in places like Sugar Hill and the Bronx and New York City could latch onto, right? And it kind of gave them some feelings of accomplishment as a community. And psychologically and sociologically, kind of tying together, this all becomes very important. So you start to see how if we start really analyzing all of the social sciences, we start to really do get a full understanding as all of these things sort of weave together to really tell the story of whatever it is we're studying. In this case, it's early rap music, but as we go through the year, we're going to use the same strategy, and we're going to identify all of the ways that different social sciences would view a particular moment. And in doing so, we're going to have this great understanding of things. Political scientists. Oh, my favorite. I was a political scientist major. You probably watched the video. You probably got a sense of that because I think I droned on and on in the political science lesson because, that's what I studied. So that's what I'm into. Political science is the study of how a simple idea can become powerful enough to create a policy or a change. And the politics of rap music, it's undeniable. This started as just a small idea on some street corners in New York City by some, lower socioeconomic kids that were just looking for a good time and trying to create an identity they could be proud of. And that simple idea has exploded, right? That simple idea has become so powerful that rap music is now one of the great genres, right? Rap is its own genre of music. This was not a flash in the pan. This wasn't just something that got hot quick and then disappeared. It wasn't just a quick fad. Rap music has become a transformational piece of what it means to be an American, right? All you kids probably listen to rap music in some way, shape, or form, or have an opinion on it. And it has become a key piece in music itself, right? Where other forms of music have started to develop and grow off of rap. It has become its own major genre. A small idea has become powerful enough to be adopted by millions and millions of people. right? Let's just say it's spread outside of Sugar Hill. So here you have it, right? This is what we do. As social scientists, we get a true, full understanding of any moment in history by using all the different social sciences to really develop our understanding so that we can make intelligent, logical arguments regarding historical circumstances. So if I were to put this all together, I would sound like a pretty smart dude when it comes to early rap music, wouldn't I? On that note, let's hit the Sugar Hill gang and let's get out of here.